This is a new day. This is a new day full of sound and light and expectation. This day has been waiting for you. This day has been waiting especially for you, to embrace you, to guide you. This day has been waiting with open arms just for you. This is the day we have been given. Let's not waste it. Come now and let us worship together. Welcome, everybody. My name is Reverend Joseph Boyd, and I welcome you here live into this beautiful sanctuary on a very beautiful, snowy January day in one of the best cities in the world, Youngstown, Ohio. I welcome you live to this space at 1105 Elm Street on the north side, a place that has stood here as a community of sanctuary for all those who feel their heart moved to love and to be with those who are hurting and vulnerable and to offer healing and hope. I feel very grateful to stand on land that once belonged to the Osage and Erie nations, and over the course of over a century was settled by the English, German, Hungarian. In the 20th century, immigrants from Puerto Rico, from all over the world, from the Middle East, came here to work in the mills, and then in the aftermath of the mills leaving, have continued to settle in this place and leave it as a fertile land of promise, a promised land. I feel so blessed to be with you this morning. And wherever you happen to be tuning in from, I welcome you. I welcome you if you happen to be within a few miles of where I'm standing now, here in Youngstown. I welcome you if you're in Mahoning County and Trumbull County. I welcome you if you are in PA, enjoying probably very similar weather in Hermitage or Meadville. I welcome you if you are in the sunny skies of California or Big Sky country of Montana. I welcome you if you're in the mountains of Colorado or near the coast down in South Carolina. I welcome all of those especially who are tuning in beyond the United States in places like Brazil, the Dominican Republic, Europe, and of course I welcome our good friends in New York City who have been tuning in regularly. Welcome into this space. I'd like to bring your attention to a few things that are happening both this morning and later this week. Down in the chat box, you're going to see a link for religious education starting at 11:30 a.m., and there's a link for it down in the chat box for those who are 14 years and younger. And at noon, there is going to be an opportunity for people who are 15 and 18 to connect with people of the same age. And what they're going to be engaging with this morning is they're going to wrap up their Justice January focus that will continue to focus this morning on lesser-known activists who took small steps and made a big difference in our country and in our world. So many of you probably know we study a lot of the great, prominent activists, but really there's no movement without people like you and I, ordinary people that feel a prick of our conscience and want to do something to offer healing to the world. And it's really those people that have really made the difference. So I'm glad that the youth are going to study some of these lesser-known activists who were just as important, if not actually more important, in actually bringing about the world that we have and the world that we still might have to come. On Tuesday, February 2nd at 7 p.m., there's going to be a conversation and presentation on racism and relationships. I think this is very important, racism and relationships. I think it's really important not just to engage racism as something that's outside of us, like a system, but to really engage racism as a system, yes, that affects all our institutions, including our churches, and also it's interpersonal. How the system of racism impacts our personal relationships with people, how we relate to ourselves, how we relate or maybe don't relate to our neighbors, even if they may live within a 50-mile radius of us. So this will be a presentation again, February 2nd, Tuesday at 7 p.m., and I'll read the little blurb. It says, experts have summed up the year 2020 in one word, trauma. Through the pandemic, the role of racism and the ongoing problems of white supremacy has continued to damage our communities, our relationships, and even our own mental health. This will be a Facebook Live streaming event and is meant to be a catalyst for conversation and healing and transformation. So again, this will be a Facebook Live streaming event. If you want to get the link for that information, you can email the office at office, OFFICE, at UUYO.org, and we'll send you that link for the Facebook Live event. The following day, Wednesday, February 3rd at 7 p.m., I was inspired by some comments I received based on the Martin Luther King Jr. sermon. I talked about the difference between a negative piece and a positive piece that came directly from King's letter from a Birmingham jail. And I got comments from people saying that was very compelling to them to hear the difference between a negative piece and a positive piece. Negative piece being the absence of tension, positive piece being the presence of justice. And so I thought, based on those comments, that it might be good to actually have a conversation to go a little deeper and actually investigate more thoroughly what I think King was talking about and how that applies to today, and also to get your own thoughts and ideas. So you've heard my take, and I would love to hear your take. And so that's going to be on this same Zoom channel, February 3rd, Wednesday, this coming Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I welcome all of you to join me for that conversation called A Positive Peace. And our last announcement is I invite all of you to join or consider joining our next anti-racist study group. The group will be reading the book Caste by Isabel Wilkerson starting in February. Many of you maybe have heard about this book. It's gotten lots of great reviews and has become quite popular. It's a book written by Isabel Wilkerson that talks about the American system of caste that often is invisible and compares it to other nations in terms of how our culture has become so stratified based on both race, class, and how it relates to capitalism. So consider joining that. It's going to be in February. I don't know if there's a date yet, but it will be happening soon. And we do have copies of the book at this church. So if you want a copy of the book for the book group, we can supply those to you free of charge. And if you're interested, you can contact Gary Davenport, our commissioned lay minister. Some of you may know Gary. For those who don't know Gary Davenport, again, you can contact the office and they can put you in touch with Gary and just say you're interested in the book group Cast. Now I would like to go to John Shartle, who will offer our chalice lighting this morning.
Good morning. As we entered 2021, after nearly a year of quarantine in one form or another, almost all of us imagined what the year ahead would bring. Here are a few things I imagine. I imagine an unmasked barbecue in the backyard with family and friends. I imagine getting on a plane to Colorado to visit my daughter who is expecting her first child. I imagine going to the grocery store and not being enraged at the person in front of me who is not wearing a mask. I imagine going out to dinner at a local restaurant and seeing a great band live, not on Zoom. I imagine seeing my government working honestly on issues of racial, economic, and climate justice. And I imagine talking with all of you in person at coffee hour after the 11 o'clock service at 1105 Elm Street. What have you imagined? Light this chalice in the spirit of imagination, hope, and healing. Please join me now in reciting our church's covenant. Love is the spirit of this church and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Each month, we give to an organization that supports transformation in our community, which is the heart of our mission in our church's historic commitment to the well-being of our community. We give 100% of our offering to those in need. UUYO's Giveaway the Plate recipient for January 2021 is UUJO, UU Justice Ohio. They are a group of clergy and lay leaders throughout Ohio offering congregations access to advocacy, training, and action around issues of social equity and equality. This year, UUJO has been critical in offering expertise and materials to the important local immigrant assistance program that our members run. This month's Share the Plate will pay for our membership in UUJO. We will now receive the offering that supports the life of Youngstown, the Mahoning Valley, and our wider world.
Now is a time in our service where we get to respect one of the greatest gifts, if not the greatest gifts there is, the gift that we are alive. So just notice your breath and your body. It's okay, whatever position you find yourself in, whether you're lying down or you're sitting, or even if you're walking about or doing some activity. Just notice what it feels like to breathe in your body and just feel alive. And since this is the theme of imagination, imagine something that actually is true, that all of us breathing are connected to one another across space, time, and geography. Let's feel that for a few moments.
Today's reading is The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman. And I, like many of us, first heard this about 10 days ago. And it's just a wonderful piece. The Hill We Climb. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what just is isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours. Before we knew it, somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother, can dream of becoming president only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. And even as we grieved, we grew. That even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together, victorious. Not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare. It's because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant just delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can periodically be delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith, we must trust. For while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour. But within it, we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? We now assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move on to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain, if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left with. Every breath from my bronze-pounded chest will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the windswept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover. And every known nook of our nation, and every corner called our country, our beautiful, diverse, and beautiful will emerge. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge, battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if we're only brave enough to see it, if we're only brave enough to be it.
I've been thinking of the phrase delayed, not denied, after I was reminded of the phrase listening to Reverend Michael Harrison deliver an address on Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday about the civil rights struggle and bringing it to the present moment today. It's a popular phrase in many Christian churches. Delayed, not denied, emphasizing that God's promise might be delayed, but not denied. It's a compelling thought, and it reminded me of the inauguration and of the time we are in now, still in the middle of a pandemic, waiting for it to end. It made me think of phrases like the Promised Land and the inspiration for Amanda Gorman's poem, the vision of a city on a hill made popular by the Puritans who came to this country with religious fervor in their guts. It made me think of Dr. King during the last public address he gave before his assassination, telling America that he had seen the Promised Land with his own vision and power of imagination, but that he may not get there with us. For those who know the Bible, they will understand that Dr. King was referring to a passage in the Hebrew Bible when Moses, after many years of traveling in the desert toward the Promised Land with his people, stands atop a hill and sees the Promised Land that he's been seeking his entire life with a clarity of vision. And as soon as he sees that Promised Land, God tells him, to the reader's surprise, that he will not make it into the Promised Land, that he can see it, but that he will never be able to enter it. That will be for the next generation to do. There's something that happens in the text in that moment, something very special. When Moses, their fearless leader, the person who they relied on for this vision, is no longer, when he dies, it is then up to the reader to inherit that vision of the Promised Land and live in it, embody it, and make it real in their own lifetime. Amanda Gorman continues that tradition in her own way with her beautiful inaugural poem, The Hill We Climb. We as Americans are defined by one word: pursuit. We are always in pursuit, in motion, in activity, in hope towards something that will make us happy. With this comes an innate optimism that is taken for granted until you encounter, like I have, people in different nations who say, wow, you really assume that things are going to work out for the best. And it's incomprehensible to some. But I too am an American, and this too seems to be part of my makeup, my understanding of what it means to be a person. There is an energy of pursuit that I can feel inside me. The pursuit of justice, the pursuit of equality, the pursuit of a promised land where all may know that they are actually indeed now free and loved beyond measure. It is a wonderful part of our collective spirit that we believe deep down that the difficulties we face today are only temporary. There may be a delay, but we will not be denied happiness and fulfillment. I think this is a wonderful quality, actually. It has been argued by many that we as a people, as American people, are addicted to pursuit. This is true even for Unitarian Universalists in our congregations. There is an old joke that Melissa Smith shared with me that if given a choice between heaven and a discussion of heaven, our members would always choose to go toward a discussion of heaven. I used to be very critical of this tendency in our denomination to always be pursuing something without realizing that it is already here. But I've softened a bit, I think, over the years, and my attitude actually has done a 360. I now see that a discussion on heaven can actually be heaven if we can fully appreciate it. It is wonderful to be in pursuit of our dreams and imagination for a better world with each other. It's a wonderful life. And in fact, I find it incredibly powerful, meaningful, and beautiful. Where I think it is easy to slip is if we forget that each and every one of us is like Moses in the Hebrew Bible. Each one of us is like Dr. King. Each one of us is like all the people, all the women and men who have made our life possible in this moment. Our greatest inheritance and our greatest gift to the world is our imagination and our vision. And none of us will ever enter it completely ourselves. All of us have the capacity to witness it, to truly embody it, and inspire others to live a life that is full. But we are not meant to completely, 100% enter it ourselves. That is always for the next generation to do. Our only role is to pass on the hope of the ages that can sustain and inform the next generation. This is our greatest role, and if understood, our greatest joy and our greatest accomplishment. We are travelers to a destination we will never see. And this is how it's supposed to be, actually. It's not a mistake. It's not something we did wrong. It's not something that we could correct or change somehow. It is the price of a life in pursuit. And that price is really a gift that the next generation can build upon our own discoveries and our own mistakes and come into a fuller expression of who they are. But I think we need not fall into the opposite extreme. We should be wary of being too patient. We should be wary of being too moderate in our estimation of ourselves and the possibilities of our world. If we too comfortably enjoy endless delays to people discovering the beauty and depth of their personhood, we are in trouble. I am personally not a fan of peaceful acceptance in all circumstances. At times, I think impatience is necessary. Impatience, exercised appropriately, is just as virtuous as patient forbearance. Impatience reminds us that we have a role to play here, now, in all of this. And we shouldn't just wait until our death so the next generation can deal with all the things we could have actually done in our lifetime. That is part of the American temperament as well. Impatience. And I think it's a good thing. Impatience. If it can be done today, do it today. But of course, I'm saying that as an American. So for all our international viewers, my perspective is obviously skewed. There is a price to delay. If there is something that can be done about it in our lifetime, there is a great price to pay. The price is what we commonly call the status quo. The status quo is an illusion about reality. It's an illusion about reality. That everything that is must be the way it is for very smart, good reasons, and it probably will be impossible to change for very good, smart reasons. That kind of illusion is as deadly as any drug, any narcotic, anything that could ever poison our mind and our body. The status quo is a form of menticide, eating away at the very spirit and intelligence of a person who shows some initiative in helping to fulfill our collective promise. It is literally a deadly illusion. The status quo is a false reality, a limited imagination that keeps people feeling justified living smaller lives than they are capable of living. I'm more wary of this than any pandemic or any kind of deadly disease we've yet encountered. It is actually the number one killer of this nation. A belief that there are very good, smart reasons why things are the way they are, and only foolish people would seek to do anything about it. That perspective, in my estimation, is a disease of the mind. And if we're not careful, it will imprison us. I think this is especially true right now. We have the great advantage of inheriting the vision of this land being a place of possibility, with the added advantage of seeing today how far we are from realizing that possibility. At first glance, you might think these two realities may be contradictory, but I think they actually can inform and deepen each other. It may seem strange to say, but it should inspire us. The chance for human transformation has never been more possible in all of human civilization as it has at this moment. I mean that, every word of it. Many are wondering how this pandemic will change our human civilization in terms of how we relate to each other. Many ask this question with great fear and trepidation. But I see how this time will change us. And for me, it comes down to one word: connection. We are wired to connect to one another. We are wired to connect by any means necessary, every possible way available to connect with one another. We will do this in person when it is safe to do so. We will connect to each other using all technology we currently have and all that I'm certain we will invent in the next 20 years. We will connect by our phones, our computers, internet, social media. We will witness live encounters of connection just like this, and we will record them for ourselves and for people who cannot join us today, in this moment. We will connect every way we have available, and we will continue to invent new and more accessible ways for us to connect with each other no matter where we are. What this time has showed me is that what we think and what we do, what we say, has a direct impact not just on ourselves, but on the entire world. I've mentioned this many times in the past in regard to contagions, pathogens. But I want to go a step further this morning. We have seen how quickly fear and panic can reverberate through every form of communication imaginable. We've seen how quickly an uplifting inauguration can uplift the mood of a people. We've seen how one moment, one single moment, can impact people far and wide that are direct, personal, and felt. We have an incredible power, all of us, each and every single one of you, not just in our own lives. We have power over the experience of life for all humankind. Our hope literally becomes the world's hope. Our fear too easily, becomes the world's fear. One is actually not better than the other. I'm not saying that. Both experiences can be beneficial if we know how to work them out as a community of support and love. Amanda Gorman wrote in her inaugural poem these lines, which I love. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. I really like that definition of victory. We will be victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. The Bible says wisely that we reap what we sow. All the more reason to sow growth in the midst of grief. All the more reason to sow hope in the midst of hurt. All the more reason to try to sow goodness even when we're tired. All the more reason to realize that we are tied together in a single garment of destiny in this nation and across our globe. So I wonder if that inspires you. If you don't feel hopeful, don't worry about being hopeful for yourself. Be hopeful, because your hope will impact the entire globe. If you really don't feel like growing too much, I've been there. Don't worry about growing for yourself. Grow because the world needs to grow up. If you feel fearful and skeptical, that's understandable. And all of us feel that. But think for a second of what kind of world you want everyone, including the next generation, to experience. We can't help feeling fear or skepticism or anxiety, but we can help if we sow fear and division, or if we choose to sow possibility and connection. That actually can be a choice with the support of a loving community like this. I'll go a step further because I've experienced it firsthand myself. You can be fearful, angry, in a foul mood, and still sow possibility and connection. It is possible to commit ourselves to this. I've experienced that firsthand. We don't ignore or pass over our fear, our worries, our anxiety. We honor them. We learn how to be gentle with ourselves and allow that experience to be there without completely defining our experience of life and the experience of life of all people across this world. It is important to respect the nightmare we experience. But it would be a mistake to assume that we have to live in a nightmare forever, until the end of time. We need a dream that respects the nightmare, but is not completely defined and overwhelmed by it. And my theory is this: that dream will not come from me. That dream will not come from a single individual. If any dream is to have a power in this day, in this new age that we are in, it must be a collective dream, a collective imagining that we find worth giving our living to. The price of delay is the nightmare we witnessed over the last year. But now it's time for a dream that respects and can utilize the nightmare for the deepening of our souls and the health of our people. I think there is great power in seeing this last year not as a denial, but as a delay of our deepest held values. There is great power in seeing that we are in the promised land today, right now, the land that past generations lived and died for. And we are not quite there yet. Our task is not just to get there, but to point out where we might go beyond our pettiness, beyond our division, beyond our arrogance, beyond our fear. A place on the hill that sees the nightmare as part of the fulfillment and realization of the dream. Please pray with me. Spirit of love, we are grateful for the gift of breath. We are grateful for the opportunities to feel our connection with one another. We are grateful for Zoom and all platforms that allow us to connect to what really matters in our lives, and to know that we are not alone in that endeavor. Please help us to be grateful and to allow that gratitude to radiate toward all those who are fearful and feel a sense of something lacking. Help us to recommit ourselves to what is right and just and beautiful, so that we may embody that which is just and right and beautiful. Help renew us in body, mind, and spirit. Open our minds to what is possible, and help us to be gentle with ourselves as fear tries to close us down. Please help us to be the people we could be, while loving and respecting the people that we are today. All this we pray. Amen.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire.
As you depart, please remember the one great fact. You are loved and never truly alone.